Let me at the outset thank Dr. Garg for having invited me and giving me an opportunity to chair the session and also to share some of my views. Um, you know, uh, there have been different presentations, but what I would really like to uh, you know share before you is how government looks at it and how what are the kind of the programs and policies that the government has come forward, come up with in this particular sector. As we all know that the ethanol blending program, it's not a new program in this country. For many of you who may not know, we did that ethanol blending way back in 1940s. During the Second World War, we blended up to 20% ethanol in petrol, and we called it as Power Petrol. And this was sold in Mumbai. All the best buses those days were run on gasoline, and it was run with Power Petrol. And all the entire quantity of ethanol that was required came from the state of Karnataka for that. So biodiesel also, we though not in the form of biodiesel, but bio oil, we have experimented with that in our vehicles quite early, as early as in 1920s and 1940s and things like that. But however, we have a biodiesel blending program also today. And when I talk about biomethanation, this is again, India has been a pioneer. The first biomethanation plant in this country was set up 130 years ago. In not even 19th century, it was 20th century. It was in the 19th century, later part of 19th century, from cow dung to plant. And that plant, until very recently, it was operational in Matunga. In Mumbai. So we have a history of biofuels. In the recent past, we know that in early part of this century, we started the ethanol blending program way back in 2003, 2004, when Ramakrishna Y.B was the the petroleum minister. And then around the same time, the Planning Commission of India, which is today called Niti Aayog, the Planning Commission came up with biodiesel mission. There were a lot of fallacies in the approach that we had, but anyway, the initiative was taken. So, 2013-14 onwards, we are re-looking into our, biofuel program and how we can, introduce those kind of corrections that are required and really looking into new targets. So, the entire biofuel program, as we all know, is driven from three major points. One is we all know that we require, we have to work towards energy self-reliance. And the second thing is the environment issues and challenges that we have. So we have to really mitigate those problems. And the third is, when we drafted the Indian biofuel policy, what we had kept in mind is how this probably the biofuel program could act as a tool for rural development. And specifically looking at how we can further strengthen the agriculture sector by not only making use of the agri residues for our program, but also engaging the farming community to grow, in addition to food, also grow the feedstock that is really required for our energy program. So these are the three dimensions that this whole program has. So we all know in the recent past, after the 2014 initiative and 2018 policy, the ethanol program, which was in 2014, which was at something like 1.4% blending at the national level, has now crossed 11%. And we have a target to do 20% blending by 2025, which was the target to do it by 2030, but we have advanced it. And we're also looking beyond 20% blending. We're also talking about E100 sales. We're also looking at ethanol being used for our sustainable aviation fuel program. So, a lot of things are being talked about when it comes to ethanol. When we talk about ethanol, when we talk about the feedstocks, there was a time when we were only using C molasses. The new policy allows us to use not only C molasses, the B molasses, sugarcane juice, etc., and the syrup also. People ask this question as to, if we do that, are we not going to create a shortage of sugar in the country? But if you really look at the last decade, we have been producing excessive sugar and we have not been able to consume nor able to export it. And India has been spending a lot of money to subsidize the export of sugar. So this is one of the reasons why we had to stop subsidizing the sugar export, instead convert the sugar into ethanol to meet our energy needs. And we have been quite successful with that. When you talk about ethanol, one is any kind of sugar or starch or cellulose can be converted into ethanol. So I mentioned about the sugar route. Even the starch route, we allowed the sugar grain, various grains to be converted into ethanol in the new policy. Again, people would ask this question: are we not creating, the food scarcity in the country? The food versus energy security debate has been a very old debate across the globe, and specifically in a country like India, where we have an agrarian society. Like I mentioned about excess sugar production. If you also look at food grains, we have been producing more fruit grains than we can consume. We still have challenges of meeting our nutritional needs, but again, when it comes to food grains like rice and wheat, we have excess, and we are not able to export it. And if you also look at some of the Government of India numbers, something like 40-50 million metric tons of food grains is being declared as food grains unfit for human consumption, and that is being either burnt or dumped into the sea. Not even for human consumption, even for animal consumption it is not fit. So we are wasting so much of food. Instead of that, why don't we regulate our food production and also see that any excess surplus, and also instead of allowing it to rot, allow it to produce more ethanol. Now with these kind of steps that we have taken, we have now been talking about 20% blending, going beyond that, E100 sales, with flexi cards being introduced pretty soon in the market, etc., etc. So, and also looking at ethanol for sustainable aviation fuel. And another important aspect which normally is not talked about, I am the only guy who keep talking about it in the country, where we can even blend ethanol in diesel. And today we have some challenges of biodiesel production in the country. I'll come to that feedstock related issues. But we have done up to 7.8% of ethanol has been blended in diesel and run the diesel engines with absolutely no issues. We have, in fact, there have been a lot of gains with regard to reduction in the exhaust gases, the carbon emissions, and increase in the mileage, and so much of carbon saving that you are going to be doing it. And it is economically sustainable also. Anyway, I think that is another program. Very soon, we may start a pilot somewhere in the country of blending ethanol in diesel, though there is so much of resistance from different players in the field, but it is going to happen. Now, coming to the biodiesel program, before that, the point that I was trying to make is that, ethanol, we have such a huge potential. We have various different types of resources which can be used, and one of them is the agricultural residues. And when you talk about agricultural residues, in fact, I was chairing the study steering committee which was constituted by DST TIFAC. And from 10 major crops, we have more than 1 billion metric tons of agri-residue being generated year after year in this country. And even after considering the different usage we have for that, we have nearly 180 to 200 million metric tons of agri-residues which is being burnt on the farmer field, with no value recovery on that, and contributing to the environment problems that we have at this point of time. So it is possible for us to aggregate all this and make it available for whether it is ethanol or the biogas program. And as Anjanji was talking about where the carbon is going to come from. This is where the carbon is, and we have enough resources that is available. And when it comes to the biodiesel program, most of the biodiesel program in the country is driven based on the imported palm styrene, as rightly pointed out by Muleji. But we do have other feedstocks. Say, for example, TBO. I have been talking about this TBO for more than 25 years now. And we have something like 6 million metric tons of TBOs that are available in this country, and we have not tried to systematically aggregate it. And whatever is being aggregated today, apart from some of the use that we have, other use other than the fuel use, a lot of it is getting exported out of this country, either as a oil seed or oil itself is being exported. The other feedstocks that Muleji was talking about of UCO or the animal fat, etc. Not that we don't have these feedstocks in this country. We quite a bit of feedstock is available, though it may be small. Looking at our blending targets, we could still meet with 2%, 3% blending target with the kind of feedstock. But I would tell you that most of this feedstock is being exported out of the country. Whether it is UCO, I mean, there was no system to even talk about UCO or aggregate it. Most of that UCO was going back into the vegetable oil market, where it was being again blended with the vegetable oil that we consume, creating a lot of health problems. So we put a system in place, but now there is aggregation that is happening, but it is being exported because you can earn a few cents more when you export it and not making it available for our. I tell you, sir, I think if that the UCO and the animal fat which is being exported out of the country, if everything was made available to Dr. Anjan Ray, we probably could have produced about 2 million metric tons of sustainable aviation fuel, or 2 million metric tons, or more than that, of biodiesel. So all these things would have been possible. Unfortunately, the policy ecosystem is not addressing some of these issues. Once again, coming to the biomethanation, we have a very ambitious target. When we talk about under the Satat program, we are talking about 5,000 commercial plants to be set up. And when you set up these 5,000 commercial plants in the country, we are talking about producing 15 million metric tons of compressed biogas, which is 35% of the total gaseous fuel that we have been consuming, whether it is LPG, LNG, whatever you use, all of them put together. It's about 45 million metric tons. 15 million metric tons is 35% of it. That's huge quantities. And do we have the resources for it? Yes, we have the resources, feedstock that is required for that. It could be the agricultural residues, municipal solid waste. You have industrial waste such as press mud and bagasse, and you also have spent wash and food from the food processing industry. So much of food that is available, waste that is available. I mean, and also animal dung. When you talk about animal dung, the kind of animal population we have in this country, what is easily collectible, the animal dung is in the order of 1 billion metric tons. 1 billion metric tons. What you cannot collect is another probably 3 billion metric tons. That's the size of the feedstock that is available, resources that are available with us. But when you talk about the technologies, we have various different types of conversion pathways which can be mapped onto these different resources that we have. It could be simple fermentation, it could be thermochemical route that we have been talking about, or the biological route, that Muleji mentioned, as well as Zafarji mentioned. So we have these technologies at different maturity levels. We are talking about some of the technologies which are at the lab level, which can be easily taken to the pilot level. There are technologies at the pilot level which can be taken to demonstration level, and from demonstration to commercialization. I mean, there are some technologies which have been commercialized already. So, for example, first generation ethanol, biogas, these are all technologies which have been demonstrated at scale. But when we talk about new technologies, whether it is gasification or whether we are talking about the enzymatic route for converting lignocellulose into ethanol, we have some challenges. We have, one is the capex and operating expenses are quite high, and also when you are talking about scales, we have the challenges of scaling it up. Unless you bring down the capex and operating expenses and challenges of scaling up are addressed, these technologies are not really going to give us the kind of results that we want. So, but there is a lot of things for us to do with regard to the technology part of it. And when we are talking about technology, and when we talk about biomass being processed to get our energy needs, we also get plenty of byproducts. Say, for example, when you are talking about sustainable aviation fuel, through the ethanol route or through the HEFA route, I think, especially through the HEFA route, you get sustainable aviation fuel, and you also get drop-in diesel. It's good because drop-in diesel can straight away be used as another fuel. But when you talk about, say, for example, second generation ethanol, you get lignin. lignin is being burned to generate heat or electricity, but that's not the best way to utilize it. I mean, the lignin has to be valorized. We have to really think in terms of further value-added products. Again, when you look at the entire sustainability of the biofuel program, this value addition of various, valorization of the various value-added products becomes very important. Here again, a lot needs to be done with regard to development of the technology and commercializing those technologies also. So that is something that we have to really look into it. As far as the market is concerned, as rightly pointed out by Mr. Zafar, we have much higher demand than what the market can deliver at this point of time. Market is not really an issue. So there is a huge demand. You talk about 25 million metric tons of gasoline being consumed, 100 million metric tons of diesel being consumed. We are talking about another 7-8 million metric tons of sustainable aviation fuel. I mean, it's huge. I mean, we are struggling to cross 20%, struggling to talk about, going beyond 20% on ethanol, and 5% of biodiesel blending by 2030. It looks, a big challenge today. So, but the market is there. We can go beyond 5%. We can, 100% substitute diesel with biodiesel. But the challenge is, how and when do we get there? Now, one is the policy ecosystem is something that has been evolving in this country. And I will tell you that the government has been highly proactive when it comes to creating that kind of a policy framework within the country and announcing the program. But at the same time, what is also happening is there is a lack of interministerial coordination, because each of the ministry has a different kind of agenda. And say, for example, myself and Anjanji have been just discussing about a recent order by Government of India from the Commerce Ministry to allow export of biomass. It's just happened on 14th. So it's completely opened up. And now just imagine what is going to happen to the second generation ethanol sector, biogas sector. They're all dependent on this feedstock. And right now, the challenge that we have is aggregation of this feedstock. In order to address that, I mean, the decision that has been taken is that, okay, if we allow export, then there is going to be investment coming into this sector. Once the supply chain is created, then, Indian industry is also going to be benefit. It is never going to happen because, as you rightly pointed out, the biodiesel price in the European market is 130 to 150 rupees. And in India, you can't sell it beyond at a price more than 100 rupees. And same is going to happen. When we are talking about energy transition, we have a net zero target by 2070. The other countries have a net zero target between 20 and 30 and 50. By allowing export of this kind of feedstocks, whether it is UCO or animal fat or agricultural residues, we will be helping those countries to achieve their net zero much faster than what they have declared. And in 2070, we will be wondering in this country and say, hey, what happened here? Where are we with regard to our target? Now, it is very important. Anilji, I am saying this basically because, you are going to, I know that you are going to send certain recommendations to the government after this event here. And it is very important that, all of us go back. In fact, I was very disturbed in the morning when I saw this news. And then I have gotten into action. I have already gone and taken it up with the Prime Minister's office. I have already touched base with a couple of ministers and saying, what is it that's happening? Let us not talk about net zero. Let us not talk about biofuel program in this country. If you are really serious about the biofuel program and the targets and things like that, stop exporting these resources. And I see this as the number one challenge. Our resources, if we start exporting it, I know that we are going to earn some foreign exchange. Those days of where, we were hungry for foreign exchange, where, those days are gone. It's not there. Even if you have to earn foreign exchange, why give our resources? Why don't we do our value addition here? Why don't we sell, our end product after meeting our own requirement? But what we have to really realize is that so much of, the fossil fuels are being imported into this country. And the foreign exchange, that's the foreign exchange outflow. By, ensuring that this feedstock is available for our own homegrown program, then not only that this money is going to stay back in our own economy, it is going to help further improve our economy, and our imports also going to reduce. This is something that one has to see. And the second biggest challenge that I see is this kind of interministerial coordination, lack of interministerial coordination. This is very much required. And in a federal structure that we have in this country, you have not only central government, you also have the state government. And the biggest challenge that we have been having is that everybody says that yes, feedstock, feedstock, but then no state has really taken any initiative to produce the feedstock that is really required. No state has really taken any steps to see that they involve the community to generate more feedstock. As Anjanji was rightly talking about, the most wasted resource in this country is the land. We have so much of arable land, and we have challenges of using this land. He talked about land which has some irrigation. We also have a lot of land which has no irrigation, but we are blessed with at least 3 or 4 months of monsoon. At least during that period, you can grow something on this land. We have something like 120 to 130 million hectares of land which can be used, not just 40 million. 40 million is something which could be dedicated for our energy plantation, but you still have 100 to 120 million hectares of land. With some small interventions, it is possible to engage our farming community to grow the kind of feedstock that is really required. If you are able to do that, then we not only will be able to meet our food requirements of this country, but we will be able to grow the kind of energy that is really required from our farmers' land. And not only that, India can be self-reliant, we will also be a very large exporter of energy from this country in the matter of about next 30 to 40 years' time. So that kind of a vision and that kind of a very integrated approach to our energy needs and managing our resource base is very important and critical. And I only think, I feel that the forums provided by Dr. Anil Gargji would help us communicate our concerns, help us communicate the kind of challenges that the country has and the kind of potential that country has in meeting our energy demands is very important. And I thank Dr. Gargji once again for having provided this opportunity. And what I would like to really do is, I think we are left with probably a few more minutes. I think it will be appropriate to just open it up, and any of the participants has any questions or any points to be added for this discussion, it's most welcome. Thank you.